higher, further, faster. Before the Avengers team, there was Captain Marvel. And now there's a movie about it. Marvel Studios' Captain Marvel. Review and also a mini rant / talk regarding toxicity in fandoms. Hey y'all, it's your Twisted Girl Next Door here, and today I am doing a review of Captain Marvel. And before I get into that, I want to do I'm not going to get on my soapbox, do not worry, this is not a soapbox talk. What I want to talk about is more so putting this movie, its existence, and somewhat of my review into the context of what's happening around it, or what has happened around it. Captain Marvel is a Kree warrior who finds herself caught in the middle of an intergalactic battle between her people and the Skrulls. For a little background on the character of Carol Danvers, aka Miss Marvel, aka Captain Marvel, the character first appeared in Marvel Comics in 1968. Danvers was an officer in the United States Air Force and a colleague of the superhero Mar-Vell. Mar-Vell was the first Marvel Comics character to be known as Captain Marvel, as he was an alien from another planet on Earth as a spy to fight evil. Through a scientific blast, Danvers gains superhuman abilities similar to the first Captain Marvel and becomes known as Miss Marvel. So there's elements of this origin plot that remain in the film as well. The character had a self-titled comic book series in the 1970s titled, as you can guess, Miss Marvel. In 2012, there was a comic series relaunching of the character titled Captain Marvel, which ushered in the resurgence of popularity. Brie Larson, who plays the titled character of Carol Danvers, made some comments some months ago that were actually quite factual when dealing with, film and TV criticism, where she basically talked about the fact that when it comes to representation and diversity, that there's a lack of it, that the majority of film critics and things are white men. She pointed that out, and she said, when it comes to movies, she's been trying to, on her, press tour and things like that, really push for women of color, people with disabilities and things of that nature, who don't normally get those kind of opportunities in journalism and film and TV criticism and things of that nature, to be able to have access to the press of Captain Marvel. The thing about criticism, the things about analyzing and reviewing and things of that nature, they help shape the movies that get made. They help shape the art. It would appear that some people took this as something of a insult or a challenge or a attack against men, and against, in particular, white men. And so since that time, and with the elements of the plot and stuff being revealed regarding Captain Marvel, there have been campaigns to boycott the film. There was the review bombing on Rotten Tomatoes, where a lot of people who hadn't seen the movie yet because it hadn't been released basically were commenting that they weren't interested in it, or that they already hated it and things like that, thus bringing the audience meter on Rotten Tomatoes low. And also, there's the idea of, this woman-led film. It's the first woman-led film in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is ridiculous because the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been going on for like 10 friggin' years, and this is the first movie we've gotten. What you're going to get, that this movie, everyone's paying attention to what people are saying about it, right? The critics and things of that nature. I wrote an article that was published the other day about the movie as well, and I'll put a link to that. You can also find that on Rotten Tomatoes, as I am a verified Rotten Tomatoes film critic. And then there are those who are just looking to rip it to shreds for whatever reason, because maybe it makes them slightly uncomfortable that here's a movie that doesn't maybe center the group they are a part of in the narrative. And so I want to put that in context when talking about this film, because I think it's important. I love context. I'm a context kind of person. I think stories and art are shaped by what it exists in. Nothing exists in a vacuum, right? So I feel like it's important to note that. One, what she said was factual. Just as someone who works in this segment, there is a lack of representation. There have been platforms pushing to give more representation. Shout out to Rotten Tomatoes, who have done, have made a concentrated effort to increase their verified critics of color and women and things of that nature. And, there's a long way to go because of all the controversy around this movie and what it represents. There's either people like overblowing it or like trying to rip it to shreds. And it's a real weird conundrum. You can't, and that's not to say if you don't like this movie, you're sexist. Like, not at all. Like, no. I mean, there are plenty of movies I haven't liked that were supposedly like feminist and things of that nature. Because, hey, sometimes stuff is not a good movie. But what I will say is if you are like inherently disliking something for the reason that you're not on the screen or whatever, or someone that looks like you is in the center of the focus, then you maybe want to reevaluate how you behave, especially for the trolls on Rotten Tomatoes and other platforms that are really trying to rag this movie and also harass people who are saying that it's a good film. Don't do that. That's whack. It's, the world is changing. That's the most constant thing in our lives is change. And you can either get with it or get pushed out the way. Okay, moving on. Overall, I thought Captain Marvel was a fun superhero film. It had all the, elements that we're kind of used to with movies about superheroes and things of that nature. And then on top of that, it added some things that we don't normally always see in superhero films. And I appreciated that. But, it definitely, it held its own for the most part. I don't think it was a perfect movie, but I think it was a solid movie and also something that, I think it's a start of something because it was an introduction movie. It was definitely an introduction movie that kind of scratched the surface of who she was and things of that nature. There was a very good balance of action, drama, humor, and the superhero, genre in terms of, backdrop and things of that nature. It was a good balance, I thought. And when I say balance, I mean there have been certain movies that have some shortcomings because of the fact that they lean too much on humor. Let's say, for example, Guardians of the Galaxy. I really liked the first one, but I thought the second one, there was so much humor in it that I felt like, or that the humor was done in such a way that it eclipsed the real high stakes. Captain Marvel did a very good job of, there was humor all throughout. There were moments where I really did laugh out loud, but when things got serious, I took it seriously. I was like, okay, yeah, this is danger right now. It wasn't like, oh, this is danger, but we just had a really zany joke before then. No, I thought that was a good balance because that can be hard to do when you want to make something humorous and light to a certain degree and fun, but you also want people to understand when there's some real drama going on. And I think the movie did a good job of doing that. The narrative really worked in this movie. I thought they did a good job because let's be honest. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been going on for a good long time, and this movie is the 21st movie, 21 in that franchise. So there's a lot of history and stuff that has been happening, that's going on, and I think they did a good job of placing it in the MCU timeline, but also helping it stand on its own so that you got to know who this character was, because that can be hard. Especially a character that has so much history, and trying to fit that into a 2-hour movie, sometimes 2.5-hour movies with superhero movies. I was actually very happy that the length was only 2 hours. And I think within that 2 hours, they did a good job of telling the story. You got to know who she was, and you also got to see her in action. So it wasn't just like a movie of like, this is far and apart from everything and nothing is really happening. It was more like you're getting to know her while things are moving forward, not only in her plot line, but in the MCU universe as a whole. Fun! You could tell that the actors were having fun and that the characters were meshing well, and it played to be a very fun superhero movie with really great action. Really cool action was going on, but not so much where I was a little worried that the CGI was going to be too much, where I was just going to be like, I can't even take this seriously, because, it's the intergalactic thing. So, like, they're up in space and stuff, which, depending, it can either look really cool or just really fake. And they did a very, very good job of just making it so that never distracted me from the fun that was happening on screen. The other great thing about this was that it did a lot of subversions of cliches and tropes that you will find in superhero movies. There's so many superhero movies, right? I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of every kind of movie, but in the last couple of years, we've had a huge influx of superhero movies. And because of that, you are going to get certain formulas and themes that kind of run throughout most of them. And I did appreciate that this movie tried to subvert that. And by subvert that, I just basically mean they either tried to kind of tweak that some of the cliches that we've come to know, or they basically just didn't do them. And, just the idea of, I know I had a whole thing about it, but, women focused, the idea that women of color played very significant pivotal roles in the movie, which is not always the case. It wasn't until really Black Panther came out that we were seeing a bit more of that in these kind of movies. So, big ups for that. And yeah, just a lot of going against the grain of what we've come to be accustomed to on screen when it comes to superhero films. And I think that was bold of it to do. And I think it did it in a way where it didn't bludgeon you over the head with, hey, here's some inclusivity, but it was also like, well, yeah, we're going to casually make it so this character is the one that does it, as opposed to who you think would be the one to do it. And by doing that, it sends a message, but not one that's like, hey, look at us, we're so, progressive. Okay, so like I was saying, this movie wasn't perfect. No movie's really perfect, so that's that. But there were some cons. I will say that I think this movie, although it did a very good job of telling the story and kind of giving an introduction of Captain Marvel and who Carol Danvers is, I will also say that if you aren't really well versed in the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe and things, it may be a bit alienating for the casual viewer. I'm not going to say it's really the fault of the movie because, look, they waited 10 years to give this character a movie, this character who, let's be honest, this character helped initiate what the Avengers is and stuff and things of that nature of just where the significance of this character. And it took this is the 21st film when honestly Captain Marvel should have probably been the 6th film they did. Because of that, it's placed in this timeline right now where there's a lot going on. There's a lot that's happened, right? Although this is somewhat of a prequel because this kind of happens in the 1990s. But even then, there's stuff happening and things are going on and things of that nature. So this movie, it tries to be a part of all that because it has to be. So it has a lot of references in it. What they were doing was straight up references where characters were coming in and things of that nature, where if you didn't know who that character was because of what other movie they had been in, you might not understand the weight of their presence. Why it's important to know that this person's there and things of that nature if you're a casual viewer. So it's not so much so that you'd be completely lost. It's just when larger moments happen or little interactions occur, you can't appreciate it as much because you don't know the other films or something like that. And I do think a quality film is one that can stand on its own without any other references, whether it's a sequel, whether it's a prequel or anything like that. If it's, one of the great things about it can be that you can watch it and not have to see other stuff. And hey, maybe Marvel Studios did it on purpose to try to get everyone to rewatch the other movies. I don't know. That would make sense. Yeah. They wanted you to rent the other movies. And this part isn't really a con. I will just say a bit of a note, which is this is an intro movie, okay? I want to say that because, I don't know what some people were expecting. I feel like some people might have been, I've seen other reviews, and things of that nature, and where, I don't know, people felt like there should have been more stuff happening than what was. And first of all, there was a lot happening, for one, but also it was the first time a lot of people was seeing this character in live action, right? And with that, you're going to have a movie where people have to get used to them. And so certain things just aren't going to occur. You're not going to get as deep as maybe you would want to. Sometimes that's usually the second movie, right? That happens. But for whatever reason, people aren't giving necessarily the space to Captain Marvel to do that. So word of warning, this is an intro movie. It scratches the surface. Usually I say whether a movie is stab approved because that's usually when I'm doing horror. I should probably think of something different to say for like my fantasy films and superhero ones. But anyway, yes, this is stab approved. No one gets stabbed, I guess. But yes, it is stab approved. I think this film is a fun superhero film. It's fun. If you are into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you will enjoy it. Overall, though, it's a fun film. It's a fun film that subverts certain tropes that we've gotten used to or accustomed to or bludgeoned over the head with when it comes to superhero films, which I really appreciate, and I think it's a step in a good direction. Okay, so have you watched Captain Marvel? Are you excited to watch Captain Marvel? What did you think of Captain Marvel? Let me know, comment down below. Also, let me know your thoughts about what my mini rant was about when it came to the way people respond to movies and the representation and things of that nature. If you want to get kind of deep with me, let me know, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. And also, be sure to subscribe so that you're the first to know when I post my videos of all things horror, dark fantasy, and superhero. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.